We are live. Welcome back, everybody, to Skin in the Game. This is the weekly live show hosted by none other than Austin Thompson, aka OZ. I am excited to do this again. We moved from Wednesday to Tuesday this week because the Chiefs are playing on Thanksgiving. So I first want to start off by saying happy Thanksgiving to all the listeners, viewers. Appreciate you guys for stopping in, and I hope you get to enjoy some good food, good family, and you get to watch the Chiefs get a W. So I'm super excited to get started. We have kind of a longer show today, and there's a lot of things to talk about. We'll start with the Chiefs' OT win this week against the Colts. Huge win. We talked last week that pretty much every game is must win at this point, and we'll dive into the game on both sides of the ball, defense, offense, first half, second half. We'll also touch base, kind of continue the conversation from last week about the playoff path and how the Chiefs can make it to the playoffs. It's not as complicated because the Chiefs won, but there's still some complications with who has to win and kind of banking on other teams to lose and different scenarios. So we'll kind of go through the different scenarios with the teams that we're going to be rooting against, essentially, to make sure the Chiefs try to get into the playoffs. And then we'll also preview that Thanksgiving game against the Dallas Cowboys at 3:00. So super excited. So let's just dive right in. Let's jump into it. We have a action-packed show. So first, let's talk about the Chiefs beating the Colts. Initial reaction is it was such a kind of vintage Mahomes, vintage Chiefs win, but it had a lot of the flaws that we've been experiencing over the last few weeks, and maybe even going back to the 2024 season. Even though they finished 15-2, that team still had a lot of flaws. And I think this year you're seeing the flaws because things aren't just rolling the same way as they were last year. The dice wasn't falling the same for the Chiefs as it is this year, where they were 0-5 in one-score games. Now they turned that around and they're 1-5 now. They finally got one to fall for them, but it was still kind of a rocky game. So first, I want to start with the defense. We have to give credit to the defense when it's due. Those guys played out of their minds. Chris Jones, who has been dealing with a lot of hate, I would say, a lot of backlash for his performance against Jacksonville, for his performance against the Chargers, two key losses on the Chiefs' schedule. Chris Jones took over when it mattered the most, and you got a vintage game from Chris Jones. It was really awesome to see, and it was something that, you usually bank on Chris Jones to go get you that sack on third down or make a huge play. And we got that from him. That was something that we've been looking for all season. The Chiefs have been dire need of Chris Jones to step up, and he was the guy that was getting the team fired up. He was getting the team going, and he kept the team alive. And so you got to give a huge shout out to Chris Jones. You also have to give a huge shout out to the linebackers, DBs. The whole defense played great. Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquill had a crazy game where we stopped Jonathan Taylor in overtime. It's 3rd and 1, and they lose 2 yards. Tranquill makes the tackle, and the Chiefs get the ball back. You have DBs who are everywhere getting pass breakups. They're not causing necessarily turnovers, but that's okay. You can live with not getting turnovers if you get 4 3-and-outs in a row. We got to realize what the defense did. And I don't want to just glaze over the defense because it's not flashy. It's not fun. The defense quite literally had one of the best performances you might see from a Chiefs defense in the last 5 years. Like, we're playing the Colts, who are the number one offense. Daniel Jones had the most passing yards per game. Jonathan Taylor is basically might win the MVP at this point. Most rushing yards, most touchdowns. They've got a great wide receiver group with Michael Pittman, Josh Downs. They have talent, and Daniel Jones is playing at a very high level. I'm not going to say MVP level, but he's playing very high. And so you have the number one offense coming to Arrowhead, and you stop them 4 times in a row when your offense has let you down all day. Your offense let you down in the very first 2 plays of the game. Mahomes throws a pick, and they get the ball back on the 3-yard line, and they end up giving a touchdown. That's on the offense. That's not on the defense. The defense didn't give up those 7 points. That's an offensive mess up that you have to blame the offense on that one. The Chiefs only gave up basically 13 points if you take away that touchdown to the number one offense in the entire NFL. And I know it's Daniel Jones, and I know it's the Colts, and it's like, they haven't been really good. They're not that good. We don't really trust them. They don't have any pedigree. They don't have any recent history of being successful, but numbers are numbers, guys. When they're 8-2 coming into Arrowhead and they are the best offense in the NFL, It could have been way worse. We could have had a whole 180 where they could put up 45. That's how good their offense is. And the Chiefs defense, who I'm going to put up there as one of the best defenses in the league. That performance against the Colts was quite literally one of the best, proved to be one of the best defenses. Yes, they don't get the turnovers, but you know how hard it is to make the number one offense go 3 and out 4 times in a row to get your offense the ball back. You got your offense the ball back after they fumble in the red zone. Kareem Hunt fumbles in the red zone, and the wind's gone out of everybody. The wind is gone. I know when I was watching it too, thought it was over. Thought I was getting ready to start my notes with 5 and 6. Here we go. The Chiefs, it's impossible to make the playoffs now. I was ready to turn the tide. I was ready to be done. It was horrible. Kareem Hunt fumbles. He's only fumbled twice in his career, by the way. And it's just like, gosh, they can't catch a break. The defense comes out 3 and out. You get the ball back. Chiefs march right down, score a touchdown. You cause the Colts to go 3 and out again. So now we're 20-17. You cause them to go 3 out again. Then your offense lets you down, goes 3 and out. So it's like, well, defense, help us out again. Take care of us. And guess what? They did. Colts go again 3 and out. Chiefs get the ball back, go down the field, tie the game. I don't want to take anything away from the defense. We will get to the offense. But the defense played so good. They get all the credit for that win. They get all the credit. They were incredible. So the defense came to play. They held Jonathan Taylor to 16 carries for 58 yards. And so we talked about last week that we knew that the Chiefs weren't going to give up 150 rushing yards to Jonathan Taylor. That's just not their defense. That's just not what Spags will not let that happen. They held Saquon Barkley to 60 in the Super Bowl. They've held Derrick Henry to 40 and multiple times. They hold Jonathan Taylor to 58. And in reality, 58, but he had a 27-yard run. So take that away. He rushed for 31 yards, basically, and he had one long run. So he was really 15 for 31. He was averaging 2 yards a carry before the 27-yard run. So they knew what they were. We knew the game plan. You know, I told everybody I would be shocked. It would be insane for them to give up 150 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. That wasn't going to be in the game plan. But what you saw is you kind of saw a slow start from the defense. You saw a slow start because the wind was taken out of you after you get a stop, you force a punt, and your offense throws the interception. Give up a touchdown, 7-0. You're still in it. It's not over. This is the NFL. But your wind is starting to get taken out of you. Game keeps going. Colts give up another touchdown. Before you know it, it's 14, and you're like, man. And then it gets to 20, and you're like, man. But the Chiefs defense did not let up. They did not stop. They played one of the best games of the season and maybe one of the best games in the last 5 years. And Spags, credit to him. I don't think he's been that good this year. Overall, over this dynasty run, he's been incredible. But this year, he hasn't been very good. I think he's been outcoached. I think he's been predictable. But this game, he said, send the dogs. The movie line that I'm thinking about is when remember the Titans, and he's like, we're going to blitz them all night. Don't let anybody cross the line of scrimmage. That was what it felt like from Spags when he realized his offense couldn't do anything. When the offense wasn't helping out, just send the dogs. Send them all. Make Daniel Jones beat you. Don't let Jonathan Taylor get past the line of scrimmage. And it worked to perfection. Now, can he take that next week and do the same thing? Not necessarily. You know, they still need a game plan, but it was one of those championship moments. It really was. It was a championship moment where your multiple-time Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator made the right calls, chose when to be aggressive. Your DBs were playing incredible, which nobody's going to give credit for those guys. They're not going to get any credit because the pass rush played very well. The D-line played really well. But a lot of that was because the corners were clamping everybody. That nobody could get open. Michael Pittman couldn't get open. Josh Downs, Alex Pierre, they couldn't get open. Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, they played great. Shamari Connor, great game. All those guys had a great game. The entire defensive was just incredible. So that was kind of like the summary of the defense. Now let's move to the offense. So the offense is something that is still a problem, and they're going to be the deciding factor of how Chiefs win games. Whether the Chiefs win or lose, I'm almost willing to bet money that it's going to be because of what the offense does. The Chiefs defense has proven who they are. They can hold any offense, any team to 20 points. You got a 20, we know that the offense has to score more than 20 to win. There will be times when the Chiefs defense holds 17, yes, but I'm talking about in general, the defense is going to hold to around 20 points. They're not going to give up 40, and they're not going to hold to 3, but they're going to give up 20. So the offense knows what they have to do. The offense has to be better. So the first half, it was like, man, what are we watching? It's the Chiefs from last week. It's the Chiefs from 3 weeks before against the Bills. The offense can't move the ball. We're kicking field goals and inside the red zone. Can't score touchdowns. And you're like, this is a huge problem. This is a huge problem. You did see some changes. You saw some changes that we were talking about from last week where the Chiefs needed to run the ball more. They needed to give Mahomes something to lean on when he's not in rhythm, when he's not able to hit throws, when his guys can't get open. And Kareem Hunt played incredible. And Andy Reid changed up the play calling very fast. You saw the RPO, first throw of the game, second play of the game for the Chiefs, gets tipped and picked. You immediately knew the Colts knew exactly what Mahomes was going to do. He was pulling that and throwing the slant to Rice. It was predictable. And that was a moment where Andy Reid had to choose, am I going to make changes or am I not? Or am I going to stick in my ways? And credit to Andy Reid, he made the changes that were necessary. He made the changes that needed to be made for the team to win. Now, they didn't execute, and I think some of the play calling in the red zone was bad. But Andy Reid made adjustments, and he listened to the outside media. He listened to, not necessarily saying he took advice from people. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying is he saw the outside noise and he realized I can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. I can't be a psychopath. Can't be the definition of a psychopath. I can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. And for the first time, you saw Kareem Hunt get 30 carries for 104. When's the last time you've seen a Chiefs running back get 30 carries? Jamal Charles, maybe the last one. 30 carries is insane for a guy over 30 years old who you picked up off the couch last year. That's crazy, but it worked, and it's necessary. It was necessary because the Chiefs run so much out of shotgun that's predictable. They run one offensive run like the whole season, and it's been inside zone out of shotgun or a delayed handoff out of shotgun. And for the first time, you saw Patrick Mahomes get under center and hand the ball off. And what that opens play action. When the defense has to realize that the run is a real option, this is why RPOs were good. RPOs are good when you actually run the ball. When you run pass option. So it's run pass option. You can either hand it off or you throw a quick pass, and those are your two options. Now, if you only pass out of run pass option, RPOs, then it's PO, pass option. There's no run. And that's why the Chiefs have been so predictable. That's why the offense has been so stagnant, because Mahomes is throwing it every time. If Mahomes gets to choose, he's throwing the ball. He wants to throw it 50 yards every play. So Andy Reid deciding to choose to change it up, look himself in the mirror and say, we got to get under center. We have to get under center, because it causes the defense to step up in the box. It causes the defense to actually believe that you're going to run. When you're under center, you're more likely to have run plays thrown in, and play action works a lot better than it does out of the shotgun, especially for the Chiefs. Like Detroit Lions, their offense is beautiful when it comes to running play action versus running the ball. They have a great two-headed monster at running back, and it works so good for them that their play action is what that's their passing offense, essentially, is play action, throw it deep, and it works. And I'm not saying we have to revitalize. Andy Reid has to change his entire offense, but you have to add another layer. You have to be creative. The creativeness has not been there. And so I was just surprised, honestly, very surprised that the Chiefs were able to run the ball 30 times with Kareem Hunt. They ended up running over 40 times. And so it's one of those things that you want to see going forward, but you can't expect it. Like, pump the brakes. We can't expect 30 rushes every game from Kareem Hunt. That's not going to happen. That's not possible. He just won't be able to do it. If they went 30 times, now that's why when you have a tandem, like if we were Detroit and had Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, or the Chiefs could have a tandem if Isaiah Pacheco could run through a hole. But if you have Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, who you give 15 carries each to, now you have a balanced offense. Mahomes still threw 46 times. Like, Mahomes threw for 352 yards and the Chiefs had 30 rushes. Like, let's not glaze over that either. The offense was well balanced and Mahomes still had a crazy game. I mean, no, he didn't have any touchdowns and he had the interception, but yards wise, Mahomes haven't had a 350-yard game since 2023. It's been 2 years since Mahomes thrown over 350 yards. So just seeing what the run did for Mahomes, the Chiefs' ears should be perking up like a Great Dane or a guard dog. When they hear somebody and their ears perk up, Chiefs fans, our ears should be perking up because if they can figure out how to work the run in and run under center, learn how to run the outside zone, and it's going to be tough this week because one, you're playing Dallas, who is a very good run, but two, you have some guys hurt. Trey Smith, and you saw the run kind of go down after Trey Smith came out, but they still stuck with it. But it's going to be tougher this week. But Andy Reid cannot just abandon it. He can't go back to his old ways where he abandons the run once it's not working. He can't abandon the run. He can't abandon the run at all because it gives Mahomes more options. Mahomes can't be Superman every game. You're asking way too much of him to be that guy. I'm not saying he can't be that guy for a game or two or three or a playoff run. That's different. But to ask him to be Superman 18 games in a season, 17 games in a season in 18 weeks, and then go to the playoffs and 3 or 4 more games be Superman, I understand he's in the GOAT conversation, but he can't do that. That won't work. He can't be that guy. So adding the run is just adding another layer. We're peeling back this layer, this onion that Andy Reid is, where if he really sticks with it, he can add another layer to his game, to his playbook. So let's jump to the second half because the first half I think was a disaster. I'm not going to say it was ugly, or I'm going to say it was ugly. It wasn't a great offensive outlook. Butker, shout out to Butker. He came to play. He's been horrible all season. And I know a lot of people kind of lost their trust in him after, a few missed kicks during the season. But overall, Butker came to play. He could be the MVP as well, making 5 field goals, including the game winner. So shout out to Butker. But the offense wasn't very good in the first half. And the urgency didn't come until the fourth, maybe like late third, early fourth. You saw it after Kareem Hunt fumbles in the red zone. Travis Kelce runs over, gives him a hug, says, we're all right. We're all right. We're good. We're good. But you could feel the demeanor of the team kind of, like I mentioned before, when I was watching, I'm like, oh, this is it. The Chiefs had like a 13% chance to win at that point, like probability wise and everything. Next gen stats, the Chiefs had like 13% chance to win after Kareem Hunt bumbles in the red zone. And the demeanor, and I know you guys felt the same way. Watching, you're like, oh, here, that's it. Game's over. You thought, even if the Colts go down and kick a field goal, it's like, wow, it's going to be hard to come back from this, especially with the wind knocked out of you. You went down and drove the whole field and you fumble on the 5-yard line. But they fought. What you saw in that fourth quarter was championship pedigree Chiefs. What you saw was playoff football. You saw the vintage Patrick Mahomes. You saw vintage Travis Kelce. And you saw vintage Andy Reid. You saw the vintage defense. And they turned it on when it matters. My comparison for this team, that I think how they want to operate versus how they can now. They can't operate like this anymore. But I think they want to operate like the 2018 Golden State Warriors, when it was Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, and Andre Iguodala. When it didn't matter, the Warriors would, it'd be the first 3 quarters they wouldn't care, or the third quarter they would turn it on. They'd be messing around, and then when the third quarter hit, they go for 10 threes and they'd run away with the game. And I think that's how the Chiefs felt like they could operate this season, especially we talked about it last week. They've been playing a lot of football, guys. They've been playing a lot of football. You got to think, Mahomes has been to 7 straight AFC championship games. So that means he's played 7 straight 20 game seasons. 7 straight 20 games. So he's got like an additional season and a half on his legs. And a lot of the other guys do. And there's a thing called, there is a thing, fatigue, not just being tired, but the going through the motions of the regular season. You can be fatigued on that. So were the Chiefs fatigued of this regular season? Maybe, but now they can't operate like that. Now you're going to see every game is just this much as intensity as it was against the Colts. You'll see when they come out on Thanksgiving Day, probably the biggest game. What I've heard is maybe the biggest game in NFL history, regular season, not Super Bowl, nothing like that. We're talking about regular season games. This Thanksgiving game against Dallas, which America's team versus New America's team, this is probably going to be the biggest game in regular season NFL history. So the Chiefs are going to be hyped up for it. But every game going forward is a playoff game. It quite literally, you have to treat it like a playoff game because you have no room for error now. And so what you're going to see a lot of crunch time, vintage, unless they just turn the offense around and become this supernatural offense, you're going to see a lot of 23-20s the rest of the way. And Dallas is going to be hard because of that scoring offense. But we'll get to Dallas later. But the Chiefs going forward have to treat every game like a playoff game. Every game is going to come down to the wire. They're 1-5 in one-score games. They're going to have to go, these next 6 games might be all one-score games. They play Tennessee, that you probably get lucky there. That might not be a one-score game. You play the Texans, who are fighting for a playoff spot just like you. You play Chargers, Raiders, Broncos. You probably get 2 easy ones, Raiders and Titans. And those are trap games. And if you don't know what a trap game is where you overlook your opponent and you're looking to the next week. You're going through the motions thinking, we got this. I'm not even worried about the Titans. We'll go on to the next week. And the Chiefs cannot do that going forward. They can't fall for the trap, which that's what it means, the trap game. You're falling for a trap, which is they're going to come ready to play. The Titans are going to come ready to play. The Raiders are going to come ready to play. They don't want to lose. This is the NFL. They're not just going to let you walk over them. So every game going forward for the Chiefs is playoff game atmosphere, playoff game importance, because you basically have to win them all to get to the playoffs. And the only way to do that is the offense has to play like they did all game, or at least majority of games like they did in the fourth quarter. And I'm talking all this kind of trash about the offense, but even Mahomes throwing 352 and Kareem Hunt going for 100 yards. Rashee Rice had a crazy game, 8 receptions, 141 yards. They had a good game, but it's not necessarily the stats that are the problem. It's not necessarily the yards or moving the ball. It's the execution. It's the execution of you can't have 3, you got to have 7. That's the only way that the Chiefs are going to be able to turn the tide, turn the offense around, is you have to get 7 points. You can't go to the red zone and fumble the ball, throw interceptions, turn the balls over. You need 3 at least when you get in the red zone. You have to have 3. You can't not score, because then that's just even worse. But you got to turn a lot of those 3s into 7s. You have to get touchdowns. I was listening to a podcast earlier before the show, and they were talking about basically all of the games this year, except for the Chiefs against the Jaguars, their first quarter, they've either scored 0 or 3 points. You're doing your defense a disservice when you can't put up points in the first quarter. Because if you're giving up points, historically, that's how the Chiefs operate a lot, is usually they give up points on the first drive and then they adjust. Spags likes to see what the other team's doing, and then, okay, we're going to make these adjustments. We'll get to halftime. I'll make my second adjustments, and then we're good. We'll finish strong. So when your team gives up, let's say 14 in the first half, or maybe the first quarter, 10 in first half or first quarter, and you can't score, you put up 0, you put up a goose egg, or you put up 3. There's a level of, you can't come back every time. When is the offense going to take the lead and take the game by storm? You saw it against the Raiders, but the Raiders aren't, they're not good. So that's not a good example. But when's the last time the Chiefs have come out and put 2 touchdowns on the first 2 drives, and you're like, oh, the offense is rolling? You saw it against the Raiders, and you might have seen it against the Commanders, but that's really it. And those aren't good teams, guys. The Chiefs play the next 6 games. 4 of them are playoff teams and are very good. They're very good. The only game that they can realistically lose is against Dallas. And if if we have to choose which one to lose, it has to be Dallas. It has to be Dallas because it's going to be very hard when you lose to an AFC team who you're chasing and you don't have the tiebreakers because you lost to them earlier in the season and you don't have as many AFC wins as those playoff teams do. As much as there's a lot of hope, it's got to turn around altogether. It's got to turn around because it's we're climbing a hill. We made the first leg, but there's 6 more legs to go. So we can be up high, we can be excited, and we can be like the Chiefs are going to win. I'm still seeing people say the Chiefs are getting the 1 seed. Guys, come on. Be realistic. Let's be realistic. The only way the Chiefs get the 1 seed is everybody loses out and the Chiefs win. I mean, that's not realistic. I still see people saying that the Chiefs are going to win the AFC West. I'm not saying it's impossible, but what's more likely? There's a 54% chance right now, probability 54%, that the Chiefs make the playoffs. With the way the standings are, they have more than a 50-50 shot to make it. To win the AFC West, it would take what you would be risking essentially is Denver would have to lose out. But Denver plays the Chargers. They play multiple playoff teams. And so what you're doing is Denver would have to lose, but you're allowing these other playoff teams to gain wins. You know, the Chargers, the Texans, the Bills, like all these teams that you're chasing, they're going to get wins, and you're banking on the Chargers falling out so that the Broncos, you're banking on the Broncos to fall out so you can get to win the AFC West. That's crazy. People still think that's an option. No, the option is you have to keep winning, and you're hoping that the teams in front of you, the Chargers, the Bills, the Steelers, you got to fight with Houston. You're hoping those teams lose. You're hoping those teams lose in front of you. And the only way to do that is by beating them when you play them. Chiefs coming up, play Houston, play the Chargers. And then you're hoping, like, for instance, I think Houston plays the Titans twice. You're hoping the Titans steal one. I mean, you need other teams to win for you to keep the playoff hopes alive. So let's touch base before we swap into playoff path. I want to touch base on a few things. We talked about Trey Smith. Trey Smith, he's not going to play. Last I heard, it's a high and low ankle injury. He's definitely not playing on a short week, and I wouldn't be surprised if he misses a couple weeks. You know, Trey Smith, he's a vital part of the running game, and I think you might see an effect at least going into Dallas, where Dallas is a very good running defense. I think you're going to see an effect of Trey Smith, but overall, don't expect him to come back. There was a couple other guys banged up. You know, Rashee Rice had a hamstring issue, but he did practice today. I would be shocked if he didn't play. Xavier Worthy will probably pop up on the injury report. He has every week, but he's going to play. Noah Gray's probably not going to play. You know, he had that awesome catch and hit the ground, but he's in concussion protocol, and on a short week, it's just going to be impossible for him to pass concussion protocol. So don't be surprised if Noah Gray doesn't play. So the Chiefs are missing a lot of guys. You know, they're banged. Everybody's banged up this time of year. Don't get me wrong. Everybody's banged up, but they're missing quite a few guys. And I'm not talking about just randoms, you know, just they're missing key guys with, you know, Trey Smith. I would say Noah Gray is a key guy. Him and Mahomes have great chemistry. Mike Caliendo, I think, is a good backup. I think he could be a starter in this league. And he plays, you know, he played a lot of role in that last Super Bowl run last year when Joe Thuney had to move over to left tackle. So he has experience and he's solid, but, you know, he's not a Trey Smith. But we'll see how it, you know, kind of the offensive line play drops off when Trey is gone versus when he comes back. And then you end up adding, which this is, I think, a good key piece. I don't know if you guys saw, but Dameon Pierce, who is a Houston Texan, and he was cut by the team, and he ended up signing with the Chiefs. He's on the practice squad. He probably won't play against Dallas. So it's too quick of a turnaround. He's not like some crazy running back, so don't think that the Chiefs running back room is solved, and the Chiefs going forward are going to be this, you know, running powerhouse. He was a 4th-round pick from Florida. He had a very good, promising rookie year, and he hasn't done great since, but he is a body. He is a body when you have 30-year-old Kareem Hunt who's rushing 30 times a game. You have a banged-up Isaiah Pacheco who's not playing great. You have a Brashard Smith who you don't really want to run the ball for some reason. It's not in Andy Reid's cards to run the ball with Brashard Smith, so he's a passing guy. And then Elijah Mitchell, for some reasons on the team, doesn't get to play. I don't know if it's injuries. I don't know if it's what. His wife came out and said that he's not injured on Twitter. I don't know if Andy Reid just doesn't like him or he did something to, him at practice. I don't know. But Elijah Mitchell's just sitting on the bench. So you bring in Dameon Pierce. The guy can play. Don't get me wrong. But there's more kind of keys to why they brought him in. One is you need fresh legs. When you're, to me, them bringing in Dameon Pierce means that they are going to start running the ball more. You don't bring in a running back if you're not going to use him, unless it's for the second option, which it could be. Is Dameon Pierce played for the Texans? The Chiefs play the Texans not this week but next week, and you're asking him, hey, let me get the plays, let me get the schemes, let me get the calls. You're using him as a kind of a spy for you to help you get an advantage on the Texans. And that's very possible, but I think Dameon Pierce has more talent than that just to sign him, to be a spy. I think he has real talent where he could be a backup. To be honest, if I was the Chiefs, I was Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco, you had a good run. Let's call it a day. Like, just let's sit out. Let's call it. You've been great. You were great during the Super Bowl runs, but it's time for us to move on. Let's say you're injured the rest of the season, and let's keep going. Because I think you could bring in Kareem Hunt. You could have Dameon Pierce take up 50% of those carries once he gets kind of integrated in the offense, and Brashard Smith can still be your third down back. And it's one of those things that, Pacheco is such a community guy. You love the guy, but it's going to be, he's just not the same. Pacheco is just not the same. Let's just call it how it is. Ever since he got that ankle injury, the guy can't find a hole. The guy can't outrun anybody. When's the last time you've seen the Chiefs go for a 50-yard touchdown running the ball? Well, even passing. I mean, when's the last time you've seen a screen that gets dumped off to a running back taken to the house? I mean, that stuff doesn't happen with the Chiefs because of personnel. Pacheco he's a hard runner. He runs straight, but he can't get around anybody. And Dameon Pierce is a little bit different. Dameon Pierce is a good mixture of Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. The guy can move, but he's also he'll run you over. He had like 1,100 yards in his rookie season for the Texans. So he's not a guy that doesn't know how to get rushing yards or how to play. The guy can play, but there may be some layers to why the Chiefs brought him in. And the report was that Dameon Pierce had a lot of other teams reaching out. It wasn't like Dameon Pierce got picked up by the Chiefs on waiver wires and they were able to sign him. No, the Chiefs got him because Dameon Pierce chose the Chiefs. I think I saw the Bills. I think I saw the Eagles. There was a lot of playoff teams that wanted Dameon Pierce. So the guy can play. So it's a good signing, especially late in the season when you're struggling with the run. But don't think it's like the running back room is saved. We found our guy. We know what we're doing going forward. No, this is just another body, a guy that has fresh legs that can get, that can make some plays and that you can have some value from. But don't expect him to go for 100 yards a game. This guy's going to get 5 carries a game, if that, once he gets integrated in the offense. Okay, let's move on to kind of a story that came out from Adam Schefter over kind of this past week. We talked about it a little bit, and the story came out after kind of the conversation with Travis Kelce, where we talked about basically it's kind of his last ride, we think. And, we were talking about the Christmas Day game. If the Chiefs don't make the playoffs, how the Christmas Day game won't be as exciting because the Chiefs, it'll be the last time Travis Kelce plays in Arrowhead against the Broncos. But it could be a story where if he did, the Chiefs were going to go to the playoffs, the Chiefs beat the Broncos to get in the playoffs for his last game. We had this kind of story. So a story comes out that Travis Kelce's basically not making any decision until March, roughly, after the season. Basically before the combine, before the draft, before all of that, he is not going to make a decision until then. And so that's interesting. It's an interesting take because to me, it leaves the door open. Now he's going to do a service to the Chiefs by making that decision sooner, because if he were going to wait till April and he's like, I'm coming back, and the Chiefs drafted a tight end, well, it's like, we might have wasted a pick, or we would have chose something different if we would have known before. So it's kind of like, at least he's going to do them a service of making that decision before the draft, before the combines, before the next turn of the season, basically for 2026. He's going to give that, but I still think he's going to give him the time, but I still think what it does is it leaves the door open. And Travis is playing great. Again, we talked about last week. Travis is playing some of the best football a 36-year-old you could ask for. You cannot be mad at the guy for wanting to come back and try to make another run. But he's got to do it for the right price, guys. I know everybody loves Travis Kelce. The Taylor Swift craze has taken over the world. But he has to come back for a price that makes sense. The Chiefs have to choose eventually. The dynasty, the way the dynasty continues is the Chiefs have to make the right moves, personnel-wise, financially, salary, all of it. Or the reason why teams don't go to 3 Super Bowls in a row, 4 Super Bowls in a row, the reason why they don't win them is because what happens is guys come, they win a Super Bowl, they want to get paid. I won my Super Bowl. I don't care. I want my money. And the Chiefs have dealt with that. I mean, you saw there's a ton of guys that they've had to let go, that they've re-signed, they've had to pay big bucks to. Well deserved. You help the team win a Super Bowl, but you should go get your money. But at some point, you have to make a choice. We talked about last week where if the Chiefs want to be similar to the Patriots dynasty and be good for multiple, decades, you have to make those right choices. And some of them are hard. We talked about Tyreek Hill. That was a hard choice, but it was the right one. And maybe not now, maybe you wish you had him back, but at the time they won 2 Super Bowls because they traded Tyreek Hill. So at some point you have to make the decision to let Travis walk, or he has to come back for the right price. He has to come back for a cheap deal. And if he wants to do one last, hoorah and do his farewell tour and, get the other fans, all over the country to see him play one last time, then that's fine. But you got to do it for team friendly. You can't take up $20 million. There's too many positions the Chiefs got to rebuild. And so love Travis Kelce, but we have to think about the Chiefs after Travis Kelce now. We're at that point in his career where we have to think about the Chiefs moving forward and what happens after Travis Kelce's gone. You got to think about signing Rashee Rice. You got to think about Trent McDuffie. You have to put money somewhere else. You got to think about bringing in an edge rusher. You got to think about bringing in D tackles. You got to replace guys. Brian Cook, he's going to be coming up and getting paid. You got to replace a safety. There's so many positions where Travis Kelce's cap could be going to different places. And now, yes, there is an address of, well, who's going to play tight end? And I don't know if Noah Gray's that guy, but it's easier, I think, to find a B-level tight end to make up for some of that loss of Travis Kelce than it is to spend a bunch of money on a defensive lineman. Because the difference, tell me this, if Chris Jones didn't play for the Chiefs, the starting D-line for the Chiefs would be Mike Pennell and Derek Nottie. I mean, that's what we're talking about for the D-line. Now, tell me this, if Travis Kelce's gone, is Noah Gray and let's say Jared Wiley comes back from his injury, or you know what I mean? Like the separation between D tackle and tight end and the importance of how they contribute to the team is way more for the defensive line than it is for tight end. Again, he's a Hall of Fame. To me, he's the greatest tight end of all time, but we're getting to the end and it's time to think about the Chiefs going forward versus the Chiefs in the past. If they want to continue this dynasty, if they want to take advantage of Mahomes' next 10 years. Okay, so that was our little mini segment. I just wanted to touch base on Adam Schefter's story over this past week. So let's move on to playoff path. So we touched base a little bit. And so currently the Chiefs sit 6-5. They sit 6-5. And shout out to Hayden. Talk that talk. So the Chiefs sit 6-5. And they're 10th in the AFC. We talked about last week, they're going to have to win basically 6, go 6-1. So from here forward, they're going to have to go at least 5-1. And the only one they can really lose is against Dallas, because the way that playoff standings work, it's your tiebreaker, it's record, it's who you beat and who you lost to in your division, or who head to head. And then it's how many teams did you beat in the division, AFC. So if the Chiefs, let's say Chargers, let's say that they beat the Chargers, so they went 1-1. with the Chargers on the season. The next step that it goes to is how many AFC teams did you beat in the season? So the Chiefs losing to Buffalo kills them. The Chiefs losing to the Broncos kills them. Now, if the Chiefs lost to the Commanders, doesn't hurt as bad. The Chiefs losing to the Eagles early in the season doesn't hurt as bad because it's an NFC opponent. It doesn't necessarily affect you that much in the AFC standings. It doesn't affect you that bad. So we have to talk about the three kind of major teams that they're chasing. Because, again, I know the media is saying, oh, the Chiefs are making the playoffs. And the Chiefs are going to do it. The Chiefs are going to win out. It's more likely that the Chiefs are going to have to bank on other teams losing than the Chiefs winning out and getting to, making the playoffs. Again, I know I said earlier, it's a 54% chance that the Chiefs make the playoffs, but it's more likely that the Chiefs it's kind of like it reminds me of March Madness when you're waiting for this team to lose because schools are sitting there trying to decide if they're going to get put in for the bubble teams. That's where the Chiefs are sitting right now. They're sitting on the bubble and you're banking on other teams losing. You control your destiny by winning. That is true. That saying is true. I believe that. The Chiefs control the destiny if they win all the games, then they did what they were supposed to do. But there's a probability they might drop one or two of these games. And so you're banking on other teams to lose and so that you can catch up. And so here's some of the scenarios and some of the teams the Chiefs have to kind of watch out and take account of who's ahead of them. So the first one is Jacksonville. So we know the horrible loss to Jacksonville early in the season. I mean, that was one of the worst losses the Chiefs have had in a long time, especially the way it happened with Trevor Lawrence falling on the ground, getting up, knocked down twice, and somehow still scores. So that's one of the gut punch losses that you have on the season. It's probably honestly the ugliest loss the Chiefs have had. There's two losses that you could probably take back, and we would be talking completely different about the Chiefs. The Chiefs, this would be a completely different conversation, a completely different season. They wouldn't be 6-5. You'd be looking at 8-4, or no, you'd be looking at 7-4, 8-3. If the Chiefs didn't lose to Jacksonville, you're looking at 7-4, and this team's different. You're talking about this team different than you are 6-5. If they don't lose in Jacksonville, you think that this team is probably a contending playoff team. Yes, they played hard teams. They lost to tough opponents, and every loss they have is a one-score game. So they're in every game. It's not like they're getting blown out. But losing to Jacksonville just makes it hurt a little more because now it's so important because Jacksonville's ahead of you. It's that was a huge – you don't have the tiebreaker anymore. You don't have the tiebreaker against Jacksonville. And currently, you do not have the tiebreaker against the Chargers. You also play Houston in a few weeks. And if you lose to them, I mean, Chiefs fans, I'm sorry, it's probably over because you lost all your tiebreakers to everybody ahead of you. So if we finish 11-6, and the Jaguars finish 11-6, the Jaguars are getting into the playoffs, and the Chiefs do not because we lost to the Jaguars head-to-head. Same thing for Houston. If you don't beat Houston, you lose the head-to-head, you're not getting into the playoffs. That's why I'm saying it's okay if the Chiefs are going to lose it's okay to lose on Thanksgiving. You don't want to for morale. You don't want to because you're competitive. But if I got to pick and I knew the Chiefs were going to go 6-1 or 5-2 over the next 7 games, 6 games, whatever it is, I would say, well, we're going to lose to Dallas because it doesn't affect us in the rankings. So the Jaguars have the head-to-head. The Jaguars play Tennessee, which they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. They play Indy, who the Chiefs just beat, but Indy's very good. They play the Jets, Denver, Indy again, and then Tennessee. So Jacksonville has maybe one of the easiest schedules going forward. Jacksonville is probably going to make it in the playoffs. They're going to beat Tennessee probably. Maybe twice. So that's 2 more wins for them. They play Denver, which is a tough game. They play Indy twice, which is the tough games. And then they play the Jets. So realistically, they could have 3 wins. Jets, Tennessee, and Tennessee twice. And then if they sneak one away from Indianapolis or Denver, then Jacksonville's in. I mean, they're guaranteed in at that point. Because right now they're sitting, what are they, 7-4? So Jacksonville's sitting at 7-4. The Chiefs are 6-5. So if they win 3, they're 10-7. So basically the Chiefs would have to go and win. They have to win at least 5 because you can't go 10-7. You can't go 10-7 because if you go 10-7, Jacksonville goes 10-7. Jacksonville gets in. So the Chiefs have to go 11-6, and you're banking on that Jacksonville goes 10-7. And that's a tough situation to be in. That's bad. That as much as there's a light at the end of the tunnel, Chiefs fans, it's going to be very hard to get to. I'm just trying to be honest. I'm trying to be real. I'm trying to be upfront because don't get your hopes up because it's still an uphill battle. Again, I have full faith that Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Spags, Nagy, all those guys, Travis Kelce, they can figure it out. And if there's any team that can do it, it's the Chiefs. So I don't have any. I believe they can do it. But what I am also doing is being real and looking at the path to get there because I'm going to be paying attention to the playoff standings going forward. I'm going to be watching, maybe not watching the Jacksonville game, but I'm sure it's going to be checking the score every week, every Sunday. I'll be checking the score. I got to make sure that they're losing. You're banking on them losing. We want them to lose. The next team is the Chargers, which we've always wanted them to lose. Of course, division rival. But right now they have the head-to-head. They're in the same situation, and their remaining games are Vegas, Philly, Chiefs, Dallas, Houston, Denver. They by far have the hardest schedule going forward, and you're really banking on the Chargers to be knocked out of the playoffs and the Chiefs overtaking them because they'll probably win in Vegas, but they should lose to Philly. The Chiefs should beat them. They have to in this scenario. Dallas is a toss-up because it's at Dallas. Houston's playing very good, and Denver. So there's possibly, we talked about Jacksonville going 3-3 in the last 6 games. The Chargers look like more of a 2-4. They might finish 2-4, possibly 3-3. And you would then, again, let's say if they lost to a couple AFC teams, but they beat Philly, well, that helps because it's not an AFC win for the Chargers. And so at that point, the Chiefs have beat the Chargers in this scenario. The head-to-head isn't there because you each beat each other. So then you're going to AFC wins. So the most likely scenario is for the Chargers, especially with the Chargers personnel. They've got a lot of injuries. And so they're more likely to lose a bunch of games going forward. So you're banking on them to lose. They play a lot of tough opponents, and they play a lot of playoff opponents with Houston, Denver, Dallas, Chiefs, Philly. 5 of their 6 games are against playoff teams going forward. Well, except the Chiefs, technically, they're not playoffs. So sorry, 4 of 6, but we're assuming the Chiefs are going to get to the playoffs. So the Chargers play 4 of 6 playoff teams that are in the playoffs today. So they by far have the hardest schedule for the teams the Chiefs are chasing. The final team is the Texans. So the Texans is interesting because Buffalo did not give the Chiefs any help the other night by losing to the Texans and Davis Mills, or whatever his name is. The Bills did not help the Chiefs at all by losing to the Texans the other night. And, it'd have been different. The Texans would have been 5-6, and they would be one step ahead of the Texans. And you play the Texans, so you have a chance to get the overall, get the game on them by beating them. You have the head-to-head tie, basically. So Houston plays Indy, at KC, Arizona, Vegas, Chargers, Indy again. So now what you're hoping for is you're hoping for Indy to beat them twice, the Chiefs to beat them. Arizona's not very good. Vegas is not very good. So so right now that's 3-2, and then they play the Chargers. So for their last 6 games, they're leaning towards 4-2. They're floating 3-3 to 4-2. There's a very, very good chance that they might beat Indy. The Texans are turning it around. If CJ Stroud turns it up, they're a very good team. Their defense is very good. They're very underrated, and they might be a sleeper in the playoffs. But this is a team the Chiefs are chasing, and they have to beat them. They get them at home. The Chiefs get Houston at home. I do think the Chiefs are going to win that game for sure. They get them at home. But again, you're banking on these other teams losing, and it's not a scenario you want to be in. The Chiefs dug themselves a hole, and now you're just praying that somebody else gets you out. You're praying that Jacksonville loses out, or you're praying that the Chargers collapse. instead of controlling your own destiny. And again, I think if they go 7-0 over these last 7 games, like we talked about, they won game 1 over the next 7. But if they win all 7, then they're in. They're in. They're going to finish 12-5. That's good enough to get in. No matter if you're assuming that other teams are going to go 4-2, 3-3, you're going to make it in more than likely. 12 wins should get you in the playoffs. But when you get to 11 wins, it's like, ooh, well, we got to see who beat who. 10 wins, it's you're asking for a prayer. So there's 1 loss, and it depends who it is. 2 losses, you don't make it. Realistically, you don't make it, especially because more than likely one of those losses is to a playoff team that's ahead of you, and you're giving them a win by taking a loss. So this playoff path is, as much as the media is like, oh, the Chiefs they're back, they're going to do this. I do think that if the Chiefs limp to the playoffs, I'm taking them in every situation, no matter what. And what I mean by that is this: if Patriots get 1 seed, are you taking Chiefs at Patriots, Patrick Mahomes versus Drake May? Who are you picking? You're taking the Chiefs. You're taking the history. You're taking the experience. If they go to Baltimore, which Baltimore won't get the 1 seed, but if they go to Baltimore, are you taking injured Ravens team that started off bad, it's got hot lately, but is still very injured? Lamar is sitting out practices every week, and Lamar is somehow continues to lose to Patrick Mahomes. Are you taking Mahomes in the Chiefs or on the road to Baltimore? I am. Are you taking the Chiefs that just beat the Indianapolis Colts? Are you taking Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid at Indy versus Daniel Jones? I'm taking them 100 out of 100. I'm picking them 1,000 out of 1,000. That's why I'm touching so much. Excuse me. That's why I'm touching so much on this playoff push. Because if you can limp to the playoffs, you're picking them 100 out of 100 for the first round. Because it's going to be Indy is going to win the division. It's going to be, excuse me. It's going to be Indy that wins the division. It's going to be probably the Ravens because the Steelers have collapsed. It's going to be the Patriots, and then it's going to be the Broncos. So I'm going to take them over Indy in a road playoff game. I'm taking them over the Ravens in a road playoff game. I'm taking them over the the Patriots in a road playoff game, and I'm taking them over the Broncos in a road playoff game. I'm not letting Bo Nix. I'm not letting Drake May. I'm not letting Lamar, who can't beat Mahomes. I'm not letting any of these guys beat me in the playoffs. It's just not going to happen. I don't see it happening. I just don't see it as a thing. So that's why it's so important to get there. You have to get there. Again, I used this analogy last week, and I'm going to use it again. When LeBron was playing in the East, he didn't care about the regular season. Just get me to the playoffs. Get me to the playoffs. I'll turn the switch on. The Chiefs lost games that they shouldn't have, and that's why they can't do it now. They can't limp to the playoffs. Yeah, they could have finished. If, let's say they got some wins early and then they lost some in the middle of the season and they finish strong, get hot. Yeah, that's a normal kind of season for you would say like a continuous playoff team. They kind of go up and down. The season's kind of up and down, but they still they beat the bad teams. They win some close games and then they lose some close games. That's a normal playoff team schedule. The Chiefs have dug themselves a hole because they couldn't get the 50-50 basically when it comes to 1-score games, because the game's basically on one play. I saw a guy post a TikTok and he said the Chiefs are 5 plays away from being 10-0. They'd be 11-0. In all of the games they've lost, it was because of one play. One play decided that game. Not really, because if you think about it, like against the Eagles when Travis Kelce tips the ball up and it's intercepted in the end zone. That was like in the second quarter or third quarter. So that didn't necessarily define the game. But if you look at the totality of things, if that's a touchdown, that game probably changes everything. If Chris Jones gets the sack in Brazil on Justin Herbert, that probably changes the rest of the game. And so I agree with him in a point that all of these 1-score games that they lost was only because of mental mistakes. It was their fault. It wasn't because they got their tails whipped. It wasn't because any of that. It was strictly because there was 5 plays that could have been made in the game and the Chiefs didn't make it. And that's the difference between a good team and a bad team. So now when you've lost 5 games that you could have won, if the Chiefs turn 2 of those, again, we're not having this conversation. This isn't a topic. We're not talking about the Chiefs trying to limp into the playoffs. If Travis Kelce catches that ball or Chris Jones gets that sack, all of that is out the window. But now that we're in that situation, the reality is the Chiefs have to limp to the playoffs. They have to win. Every game is going to be a playoff game. And it's hard to ask your team, because basically if you think the Chiefs can win the Super Bowl, what you're saying is the Chiefs are going to go on a 11-game win streak. They're going to win 7, maybe they go, let's call it 9-2 at worst. But you're asking the Chiefs to win 9 of 11, if not 11 of 11. You're asking them to be perfect, and that's a lot. And that's not a good – I'm not saying they can't do it. Because, again, if the Chiefs could do anything, it's that they definitely could go win 11 games in a row, win the Super Bowl, or win 10 out of 11, have a good seed, and then win 4 games in a row to win the Super Bowl. If anybody could do it, it's them. But if you play better, if you execute better, you're not in the situation. And that's what I'm getting at. So now you basically, if you didn't make those issues in the beginning of the season, we're not watching Jacksonville, we're not watching the Chargers, we're not watching Houston to make the playoffs. And that's the point I'm trying to get across, is that you have to bank on other teams now to get to the playoffs. Okay, so let's move on and look at Week 13 preview. Let's look at the Thanksgiving game against Dallas. So Dallas came off a big win against Philly. I mean, I know a lot of you guys probably watched the game. It didn't look great at first. It was 21-0, and Dallas decided they're not going to give up, and they came back and won the game. Philly blew it, but you got to give credit to Dallas. They played really good. Dak Prescott, those guys on offense, you got Dak, you got CD, you got George Pickens. It's going to be tough for the defense to, I think, play man the way they like to do, because Spags is very big on, we're going to blitz and we're going to let our corners do our thing. When you've got Dak who can sling it, they had 473 yards of offense last game against Philly, who has an incredible defense. And you've got CD, who's wide receiver number 1, and George Pickens may be the best wide receiver 2 in the league, at least playing this year. So it's going to be very tough to sit there and play that kind of defense. Now, Chiefs defense is notorious, I think, for bringing opponents down to how they play. You know, when they played Detroit earlier this season, that was probably one of the best wins for the Chiefs this season. Detroit is a team that scores 40. They're a team that Jahmyr Gibbs goes for 60-yard rushing touchdowns. And the Chiefs brought them down to their level. They said, no, you're going to play our type of game. And to beat us, you got to score 28, but your defense also has to hold us to 27. You know, it's one of those type of games. You're not getting 40 against the Chiefs defense. So I don't expect Dallas to be slinging the ball everywhere and going crazy. Dak's going to have 300 with 4 touchdowns. That's not what I'm expecting. I do expect the tight end Jake Ferguson to have a good game. I think Dallas runs their play action very well. And I think the Chiefs lack one thing, is the linebackers lack pass coverage. They had a good game last week against the Colts, and they played well. Nick Bolton almost had an interception with him and Jamari Connor. But Jake Ferguson probably is going to have a good game. Don't be surprised if you see a lot of play action, roll out Jake Ferguson. I think McDuffie's going to handle CeeDee Lamb. You know, you can only do so much against CD. He's a great receiver. I would say he's top 3 in the league. But McDuffie's going to do his part. George Pickens is one you got to worry about, because I think George Pickens as a number 2 receiver versus our number 2 corner, Jalen Watson, I think he's better. George Pickens is also a better deep ball threat. You throw it up, he's going to get it. So that's something that you have to watch, that on the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball for Dallas is the run game, their running game. Quinnen Williams, who they just got from the Jets, when the Jets unloaded everybody, he is a wrecker in the middle. He's the D tackle, D line. So the Chiefs, we just came off a 30 rush game, Kareem Hunt over 100 yards. It's going to be a lot tougher. You may see the Chiefs revert back to their original offense, which is, we're going to throw the ball around. You saw a good glimpse where they were running a lot of mesh, where you got receivers running across the field, Worthy getting open using his speed, Rice using his quickness to get open. You'll probably see a lot more of that. and you'll probably see a lot of Travis Kelce. I would not be surprised. This is the biggest game of the year as far as NFL eyeballs, as viewership, as big moment. This is national TV. Every guy's going to want to play because this is the biggest game of the year. And I wouldn't be surprised. Don't be surprised if Travis Kelce's got 75 yards and a touchdown. If you're a betting man, if you're a betting woman, lock that in. Because this is a big game, and I don't think the running game is going to be there for the Chiefs as much as we talked about how we were so happy about the running game and they were starting to run under center. I think this is going to be one of those games, and he's going to ban it immediately because it's not going to work. You're going to see the Chiefs hand the ball off to Kareem Hunt first play of the game, and he's going to get stopped right at the line of scrimmage. And they're going to be like, oh, well, we can't run the ball. Don't be surprised if that's how it operates. So here's kind of my keys to win. I gave my thoughts. Now it's the keys. I think it's if they develop some screens because of that pass rush, because of the D-line, screens are important. Rashard Smith should be catching screens. He's a guy that you can give the ball, dump a screen off to, and he takes it to the house for 60 yards. Again, I said earlier, when is the last time the Chiefs done something like that? You have not seen a touchdown from a screen, from a handoff go to the end zone in a long time. The last one I can remember specifically was when Pacheco did it in New York against the Jets in the Meadowland. He did that kind of weird angle and he took off running and was stomping. That was the last time I seen a 50, 40-yard touchdown run, screen, something of that from the Chiefs. It's just not in their offense. They just don't do it. So I think if they start working on the screens more, I think they're going to need help in protection, especially with Trey Smith coming down. So you might see more with Noah Gray being out. We're going to have to see who could step up. Who's going to step up and be that chipping tight end? Who's going to step up and be kind of that second level of tight end? Because Travis Kelce is going to have a good game, but he's going to have to do a lot of route running. They're going to throw the ball a lot. This may be a high scoring game. It may be high scoring more than we're used to. Not shootout level, but it might be a high scoring game. And last thing is the Chiefs. You got to convert red zones. You got to convert field goals into touchdowns. You can't get to the red zone and not score. And you can't get to the red zone, run 3 pass plays on the 1-yard line or the 3-yard line, and nobody can get open, and you have to kick a field goal. I mean, that is my dad would say that is piss poor. That is some of the worst kind of ways you could do it. If I'm Andy Reid and I want to establish something, I'm on the 3-yard line and I've got 4 plays to run to get 3 yards. I mean, that's how I'm operating. I want touchdowns. 3s, they can win you some games, but 3s can't win you every game. And that's the problem. Well, sorry. I think my camera just went out. So I'm going to finish here with my laptop camera. So, like I said, you got to figure out who's going to block. You got to figure that out. And then finally, I think just coaching in general, coaching has to change. Coaching's got to step up. And, Dallas is playing great. They're playing for a playoff spot. They're 5-5-1. And you can't, they're fighting for a playoff spot. So they're going to give you their best game. And Dallas thinks that they're America's team. They think that they're going to be the ones that are, running the show. And it's just, you have to come to win. You have to come to play. You have to come to win. You can't coach like you have been in the first 7 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. You can't coach that way. You got to have a better game plan and you got to come in to win. And you can't start off slow. We talked about that earlier. You cannot start off slow. You cannot start off in one of the biggest games of the year. You can't start off slow against Dallas. It's just not something you can do because they might score 2 touchdowns on you. It might be hard to get back. Their offense is that good. It might be hard for them to get back. And so my final score prediction for Thanksgiving Day, Chiefs versus Dallas, Chiefs at Dallas. I've got Chiefs beating the Cowboys 31-27. I do think that it's going to take 30 points. Whatever team gets the 30 points, I think is going to win. Dallas moves the ball too good, and the Chiefs are going to get a lot more opportunities that they did against Indianapolis, against any of these other teams. It's going to be a lot harder for them to do that. So I think it's going to be 31-27. And I think the Chiefs find a way to continue to fight for that playoff push, and they find a way to win. So I want to thank you guys for stopping in, and don't be afraid to comment your guys' thoughts. I love interacting with you guys. So follow me on all social media. You can find us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Skin in the Game, SITG show. I think I'm going to switch from Wednesdays to Tuesdays. It's a little bit more fresher when it comes to talking about the previous week. Wednesday's a good day, but I just think it's a little bit better to talk about it a day earlier. So I think I'm going to swap to Tuesday, 7 p.m. And so appreciate you guys for stopping in again. And like I said, we'll have a good Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Peace.